All right, couple things. First of all, remember that you are to be in lab to have your stuff graded. All right? I will grade other stuff perhaps when I get a chance, but it's important that you are there to get your feedback. I know there's other classes where the lab is required. I don't think it's too much to ask for a commitment for you to show up to lab to get your stuff graded. A couple people handed me stuff the other day, or actually I was out of the room. I came back, there was stuff on my desk. Now, I apologize for not being in the room. I don't know if I was using the bathroom or had something I need to attend to quickly, but still, you need to be there for me to grade it. So if you did leave your stuff up there, come and see me today, and we'll grade it. I want to go over today the stuff for the assignment I think that is due today, because in reviewing them, some of them are a little more challenging than I may have originally suspected. So I'm going to take a little bit of time to review them. And I'm going to try not to give you all the answers. Maybe I'll give a few. But I do want to point you in the right direction on a few of them. So let's look at the assignment. I'm going to go over this, but because it is essentially the answers, I'm not going to post what I do up to Canvas, because I have to give away a lot. I think most of you have done the database design. So we need to define the database before we go and do that. So, if you remember, this is the one with the hairdresser and the salon. So, we have a customer table. So we have a customer ID. First name, last name. I'm going to sort of skim through this, all right? So I might not dot the I's and cross the T's on everything. But I want to get some column names there so we can actually do the SQL statements. We're going to have a stylist. And we're going to have a stylist ID. And a first name. And a last name. We have an appointment. And an appointment consists of an appointment ID, of course. All of these are going to be generated keys, by the way. An appointment is between a customer and a stylist. And there's a date associated with it. Now here's where some people in doing the database design ran into a little bit of difficulty, because the appointment has relationships with two other things. All right? And you sort of have to read carefully and read between the lines, maybe a little bit, and come to some conclusions. But it was mentioned that an appointment could consist of more than one service. So in other words, you could go for your appointment at the salon and get your hair done and your nails done. Okay? So there could be more than one service done. Or you could just go get your hair done. Or you could get your hair done, nails done, and tan in the tanning booth. Whatever. All right, so there could be multiple services. Because of that, we can't have a service ID in the appointment table. We need a separate table. And we actually need two separate tables. We need a table for the list of services that are provided. This salon offers, haircuts and offers permanence and offers tanning and offers nails and so on. So we need a list of all the services that the salon offers. And then we need to know what services are on this particular appointment. Okay, so we have a services table that contains the services ID, which I spelled wrong, a description, a duration, like how long does it take, and a price. All right. Couple of things, by the way. Notice that for date I put appointment date, and for description I wrote the full word out. It's sort of not a coincidence that I did that. All right. I could, a lot of times people abbreviate description as DESC. Anyone see a potential problem with abbreviating description as DESC? Because, descending is DESC. You have to be careful not to make your database columns be names of things in the SQL language. All right? So, DESC means descending, which means that if you put DESC in a SQL statement, you're liable to confuse it. All right? Now, if you ever do that, the answer is to put it in square brackets, just like if you put a space in it. But I'd rather not tempt fate. I am going to not put any spaces in my column names, and I am not going to use any reserved words. Date would be the same way. From would be the way. If you were, let's say, you were keeping track of messages and you had a to and from. Well, from is used in a SQL statement, right? So you wouldn't use that. Order is a big one, right? Because order by. So you might think, well, I have an order table. Make an orders table, all right? And that way you save getting around the problem. All right, so that defines the list of services. The appointment service will give me what services are on a particular appointment. And this is what achieves a many-to-many relationship. Because we're going to have an appointment ID and a service ID in this table. Which means that the combination of those two will be the primary key. So the combination of those two have to be unique, right? So I could have an appointment in there in this table 3 different times with different service IDs, all right? And I could have a service in there a whole bunch of times with different appointment IDs. This is what accomplishes the many-to-many relationship between appointment and services. Okay. Products are exactly the same way. All right? Products is just a reflection of this. I think some people got confused because I said something like customers at an appointment might purchase products. And so they thought, well, the product is associated with the customer. Well, the product is associated with the customer, but it's associated through the appointment. Remember we talked about that in class, that that's a derived relationship. All right? So if I have the products, have a product ID, a description, and a cost, there'll be a product appointment table that will have in it a primary key of product, and appointment ID. All right. And so how do you know what customer bought a product? Well, you know the appointment that the product was purchased at, and from the appointment you can get the customer. So that relationship exists, it's just a derived relationship. Now, one thing I did not think of until this minute is that actually we probably need a quantity as well, right? Because you could buy 2 tubes of hair gel. Let's say you know you're going to be gone for a long time and you want to buy it. Or it's a discontinued item and hey, I want to stock up on it or whatever. It's not unthinkable to think that you'd have a quantity, you could purchase more than one of an item. So there's a little bit of difference between this and services. With services, it's unlikely that you're going to want your nails done twice at the same appointment, or that you're going to want 2 haircuts at the same appointment. It doesn't really make sense. But purchasing the product, yeah, maybe you want 2 jars of whatever or 2 tubes of whatever. All right? So this, in a nutshell, is the database. Any questions on this? All right, let's look at the SQL statements then. And I will just copy these in. Doing so much for you today. Show a list of all styluses. I hope you know how to do that. Okay, so we won't talk about that. Show a list of all customers who had an appointment in October. All right. A lot of people got this right. All right. I'll show you an alternate way to do this. A lot of people said something like this. Select customer name, customer first name, customer last name, from customer, appointment, where customer ID equals appointment customer ID, and appointment date is greater or equal to 10/1/2019 and appointment date is less than equal to 1031. That works, okay? Alternately, sometimes people said something like month of, there's actually a month function that returns the month. I think it looks something like that. So that's correct. There's another way to do this, though. All right? And it's with a subquery and, well, it's with the subquery and the in clause. So I could say this. This is with a nested query. So, this way is perfectly fine. This will work. This is the way that many of you did it like this, and it was correct, and it's the more straightforward way to do it. In this case, though, we have an inner query. First, we get a list of all the customer IDs that have an appointment in October. And then we select the customers whose customer ID is in that list. So let's say when I do my select customer ID from appointment where the date is in October, I get customer 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80. All right? Then I select all the customers whose ID is in that list. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, or 80. All right? So it's just a different way of thinking about the problem, and will give you a different answer. I don't know if either one of these is going to be drastically different in terms of time of execution. Now, where the problem comes in, or the devious one, the devious question is this one. Because it says, show a list of all customers who do not have an appointment in October. All right? A lot of you did this and said, okay, I'm just going to switch these things around. Where the date is before 10/1 or the date is after 10/31. That is not correct. Why is that not correct? What will this give me?
All the dates, like still in October, but not that year?
No. No. This will give me all the customers who have had appointments in some month other than October of this year. So, If they had an appointment in September of this year, they would show up on this list. If they had an appointment for November of this year, they would show up on this list. What's wrong with that? That's not what the question is asking. This is not asking for all the appointments that are not in October. This is asking for customers who do not have an appointment in October, which means that regardless of when else they've had appointments, they don't have an appointment in October. This will show up people that had an appointment in October, right? Provided they also had an appointment outside of October. And that's not what we want, right? And imagine, this isn't me just, what do I want to say, just being difficult to be difficult. This is a legitimate business need. Let's say, for example, you're going to send out flyers to people that haven't visited your salon in a while. Well, at the beginning of October, you might look to see who has appointments for October. For the people that don't, let's send them a reminder. All right? So that could be something very definitely that you'd want to do as part of your marketing plan. All right? So, if we think about this version, it becomes simple. We change where it says in to not in. Then what that will do is I'll do the same thing as before. It will show me a list of all the people that have, this inside nested SQL statement will give me a list of all the people that will have appointments in October, and then we're asking to give me all the customers that are not in that list. So this will truly give me what I want. That is a list of people that don't have appointments in October. Whether or not they've had appointments in another month or not. Show a list of all appointments for the date 10/1/2019 for Fred Barber. Include customer name and time. I thought my clever choice of words indicated that Fred Barber was a stylist, right? You know, barber. All right, so it's meant to be a stylist and not a customer. This is pretty straightforward, though. This is pretty straightforward. Show a list of services to be performed on appointment 102. Show a list of services in order of cost from highest to lowest. I would think that's pretty straightforward. By straightforward, I mean, I think we covered stuff in class where you should be able to do this. The ones I'm going over are the ones where we may or may not have covered in enough detail for you to do it, but I think hints are required because I recognize that they're a little tricky. How many appointments there are by day for the month of October? I think that's pretty straightforward. The value of all products by day for the month of October. I think that's pretty straightforward.
I didn't understand what you were asking by that question.
Okay, what I want to see is that we have a list of products. All right, we sell. Let's make it simple and say we have 3 products. Hair mousse, hair gel, and hairspray. All right? I want to see by day the sum of those 3 products, so all the products. I want to see on October 1st we sold $500 worth of products. On October 2nd we sold $600 worth of products, and so on. So, to kind of talk you through it, I'm not going to write the statement. We're going to have a select. We're going to have the appointment date. And we're going to have a sum of the price of the product. Actually, now that we've included the quantity, we're going to have a sum of the price times quantity, which you can do. All right? So in other words, I could do something like this in the statement. Sum price times quantity. Now, I'm going to want to get that by joining together the appointment table. I need that for the date. The product appointment table. I need that to find out what was purchased on each appointment. And then finally the product table. So I need to join those together, and I need to include in the where clause where the date is within the month of October. Show all the stylists have appointments scheduled for 10/1. I think that's pretty straightforward. This is the one, I don't know, maybe I was having a bad day, and I thought, I'll put this on there and then watch them suffer and lamb. No, I'm just kidding. I would never do that. This one is pretty straightforward until we get to this part, from highest to lowest. All right? What do I mean by most popular service? By most popular service is the service that happened the most number of times. So if haircuts are the things that we do the most, I would want to see that at the top. If, what would be next? Getting your nails done was the second most popular. Getting a tan was the third most popular, and so on. So if we disregard this for a second, this statement would look like this. Select service dot description count star. So we're going to count how many times this service appears. From service, appointment service, appointment, where service, service ID, equals appointment service service ID and appointment ID equals appointment service appointment ID and then what do we need to add to this? We have an aggregate function, so what do we need to add to this? Whenever we have an aggregate function, we need a group by. If there's something that we're selecting that's not part of an aggregate function. So I need to say this. All right. Now, the problem with that is that doesn't really do what was asked. That sort of does what it was asked. It would show me each service and how many occurrences there were of that service. In October, we gave 58 haircuts. We did nails for 47 people, and so on down the line. But it would show it to me in order of the description of the service. And that's not what I asked for. All right? So if you did this, I counted it correct. And if you still want to do this, I will count this as correct. The lectures that we had. So I'll give you credit if you do this. To truly answer the question, though, would use a nested query. All right? I would do something like this. Select service description, and then I'd do a count. Select count star from so I'd actually include this, and this is going to return a count of the number of appointment service records there are. Then I'm going to give this an alias. What's an alias? Well, you use it a lot of times if you have computed columns or aggregate functions. It's where you can give the result of something a different name and then refer to it. So I could say as service count. From service, order by, and then I use the alias. So, out of curiosity, that's how you do that one. For the purpose of this class, just pretend I didn't say that it had to be sorted in order. Sorted in order by popularity. Because I think this is kind of a very messy query. I do want to show you, though, and maybe the reason I did this when I created these assignments was to show you just the flexibility of the SQL language, just how involved it can get and how much power there is to all the different queries that you can create. Okay, I went over these, so let's see how many of them there were. Really, there's only two that I think are really hard, that I don't think I gave you enough information to get or is worth reviewing. The one for appointments not in October I think is a little tricky because you have to use the not in to get that. And you have to do a subquery. And then this one is a little confusing because I said to have it in, or, it even gets worse than that. I have to say descending. All right? So that gets worse than that because in order to sort it, I have to do a subquery, an alias, and then sort by the alias, descending. Okay, questions about any of these SQL statements that we went over? what I'm going to do is I'm going to give the remainder of time today as sort of a catch-up time. So catch up for you in getting stuff graded, catch up for you in working on these assignments, asking any questions you have about SQL or database design, and so on. We will probably sometime next week talk about the project in this class, because it's not too early to start thinking about that. The other thing next week we're going to do is we're going to bump back into ASP.NET and look at how we can put database stuff, the CRUD operations, create, retrieve, update, and delete, how we can generate web pages that do that. So your assignment will be to go through a tutorial and then augment that, the results that you get from the tutorial. Questions on any of this? Okay, as I mentioned, I'm not going to post this. I hope you took notes. I am going to post the recording if you need to go back over it. And again, you certainly can ask me in lab any questions that you have. All right, we'll see you there.